He threw 20 million in my face like it was a paper napkin. 20 million in losses, Victor Hale said, stabbing the whiteboard with a squeaky marker. He barked a laugh that bounced off the glass walls of the executive room. And you want to argue process? I didn't blink. The LEDs hummed overhead. The projector washed everything in hospital blue. Outside the glass, the sales floor moved as always, coffee lids, headsets, a line at the printer. Inside, it was just me, Victor, and Dana Merritt from finance, a legal pad perched on her knee like a referee's card. My name is on exactly 0 spend approvals, I said. Yours is on 6. Victor tossed the marker into the tray. You built the intake workflow. You missed the fraud flags. That's negligence. I slid my badge onto the table, voice flat. The flags were disabled at 2:18 a.m. on a Sunday by an admin token assigned to your office. Same minute you signed the change order. Dana's pen froze. She glanced at Victor. He gave me the corporate smile, thin, perfect, purchased. Who gave you the right to accuse officers of this company? I'm not accusing. I nudged a folder forward. I'm citing logs. Victor didn't touch it. This meeting is termination for cause. He waved at the door like a magician revealing a trick. Security will escort you. You'll receive details in writing. In writing from HR, Dana added, like tossing in a pinch of salt. Effective immediately. Copy, I said. I stood, slow and precise, chair legs pressing a quiet groove into the carpet. If they expected tears, they didn't get them. If they wanted me to shout, they were going to be bored. Victor leaned on the table with both hands. You crashed a rollout and cost this company $20 million. Own it. I met his eyes. I didn't crash anything. I watched you bypass procurement, route a prepay, and paper it after. The cameras watched too. The smile faltered less than a second, but Dana saw it. She dropped her gaze so hard her hair fell like a curtain. I gathered my things, 1 spiral notebook, 1 pen, 1 charger, 1 stress ball from the last sales kickoff. No laptop. They'd already cut my access. The screen had gone black at 9:04. I left the folder on the table. It was only a copy. The original sat somewhere safer than this glass aquarium. The guard was new. Tall, sweatshirt under blazer, earpiece. He led me through the atrium past the living wall and the patio furniture nobody used. The break room smelled like burnt coffee and lemon cleaner. My team watched through their monitors the way people watch a fire alarm test, ready to move, hoping not to. At my cubicle, I slid open the top drawer. Post-its, almonds, a whiteboard eraser I'd bought myself. From the back rail, I pulled a small key maintenance had forgotten to remove. My pulse didn't shift. I dropped it in my pocket. 5 minutes, the guard said. 3, I answered. I took my whiteboard, the little one I'd bought with my own money, and the potted snake plant. The plant was dying. Not my fault. The light here lied. We passed the server room door. Cold air leaked through the gap at the bottom. My eyes flicked to the keycard reader out of habit. I'd built the monthly badge report for audit, access by user, door, and minute. I knew which locks clicked when the HVAC cycled, where the cameras left blind spots, and the difference between a maintenance badge and a contractor badge at a glance. At the exit, the guard handed me an envelope, HR letterhead, 2 pages, a place for my signature. You can review now or at home, he said, kind enough to be awkward. I'll read it at home. I slid it into my tote and offered my wrist for the bracelet scan. Company policy. They swept for USBs like we were jewel thieves. The wand chirped at my pen. We both ignored it. Outside, the wind off the parking structure was sharp and honest. I set the plant in the back seat of my Civic, tucked the whiteboard on the floor mat, marker clipped to the frame. My phone buzzed. The off-boarding email arrived. Access revoked staged. Badge deactivation scheduled end of day. Scheduled, not immediate. HR always used the standard package. And the standard package always left a grace period, internal doors until midnight, visitor doors until the nightly batch at 1, VPN gone, Wi-Fi open. I looked up at the building, 4 floors of glass and ambition, and let the facts line up. Victor thought the number on the board was the whole story. It wasn't. The change order he'd signed at 2:18 a.m. had an audit trail longer than his attention span. The dock cameras caught what he didn't bother to hide. And the policy he'd ignored had teeth he'd never read. I turned the key. The Civic coughed, then settled. My hands were steady on the wheel. 20 million was his headline. I wasn't arguing it. I was about to move it to a different column. And I still had 24 hours of badge access. The cubicles looked the same as always: gray fabric, buzzing fluorescents, swivel chairs with one loose wheel. But walking them after being fired, every corridor felt like a floor plan only I could read. I moved slow, making my final lap. If security checked the logs later, it would look like nostalgia. But I wasn't reminiscing, I was mapping. Break room, burnt coffee, a donut box with only crumbs left, vending machine humming louder than the fridge. I noted the camera bubble in the corner, blind spot right where the maintenance closet door opened. Server room, cold air pushed under the threshold. My badge light blinked green, but I didn't enter. Not yet. Just confirmation. The hum inside was steady, like an engine you knew by heart. At my old cubicle, I picked up the spiral notebook I'd left behind. Inside were sketches, process flows, audit trigger lists, the kind of boring maps nobody else cared to read. They were going to be worth more than any contract in Victor's desk. In the maintenance closet, I turned the small forgotten key in the lock of the steel cabinet. Inside, paper towels, mop buckets, cleaning sprays, and my stash. Copies of the monthly badge reports I'd slipped in over the past year. Why? Because no one else cared about access logs, and I didn't trust the archiving vendor. Call it paranoia. Call it foresight. I pulled the most recent badge report, August. Flipped through the columns. There it was, 2:13 a.m. Sunday, Victor Hale's swipe at the loading dock door. Right after, a contractor badge, North Star Kinetics, the shiny new vendor. I closed the file, tucked it under my arm, and locked the closet. Back at my apartment, the kitchen table turned into command central. Whiteboard propped on a chair, spiral notebook open, badge report spread out. I circled the 213 entry in red. Then I highlighted a clause from the vendor contract index. Clause 14, be any equipment substitution not approved by the board transfers liability for failure back to the signing officer. Victor's signature sat on the unauthorized change order. Dana's initials were under his, neat and deliberate. I leaned back. The loss wasn't mine. It was Victor's, and the liability trail was clean. I checked the timestamp again, 2:13 a.m. Sunday. No procurement officer on duty, no cameras staffed. But the dock cameras rolled 24/7 by policy. And Victor had walked a contractor in during closed hours. I opened the calendar archive I downloaded weeks ago. Metadata showed a cost relief session with North Star. Scheduled for conference room 4B. Switched last minute to off-site. No address. No minutes. Not sloppy, deliberate. I wrote another box on my whiteboard, camera footage, dock, 2:13. Victor thought he ended me in that glass room. He didn't know he'd left me a countdown clock. 24 hours of badge access. And my next stop wasn't sentimental. It was the server room. The door clicked green, and the cold hit like a wall. Rows of racks hummed, blue lights blinking in rhythm. I didn't need the servers, I needed the archive corner, a workstation bolted to the wall for emergency restores. I slid into the chair, logged in with my still active badge, and pulled up the procurement portal. Read-only access, but that was enough. The audit logs weren't glamorous, just timestamps, IPs, and envelope records. But numbers never lied if you stacked them right. Victor's play jumped out. 11 minutes after the off-site session, a DocuSign envelope launched. Sender, procurement inbox. Token, Hale V. The change order approved a vendor substitution worth $9. $8 million prepaid. 9.8 wired before sunrise without a single board vote. I copied the envelope reference into my notebook. Each one was a fingerprint, unchangeable, permanent. Victor probably thought DocuSign was just digital paper. To me, it was evidence with a clock. Then I checked the competitor bids. Policy required 3 quotes. The system had PDFs from North Star, Crestwave, and Apex. At first glance, they looked fine. But I'd already run the addresses once. Tonight, I checked the registered agents. North Star Kinetics and Apex Systems? Same office. Same suite. 2 vendors, 1 mailbox. Crestwave? Dissolved 3 months before its quote arrived. I wrote it down. 3 bids, 1 fingerprint. The room buzzed louder, or maybe that was my pulse. Calendar metadata gave me the next breadcrumb. Victor's off-site meeting listed 3 attendees: Victor, Dana, and Gareth Lynn, the CIO. Gareth had been slippery for months, telling IT staff to push the loss into Q2. I wrote that down. Sloppy phrases become gold in deposition. My pen hovered. This wasn't negligence. It was collusion. The monitor flickered a timeout warning. I logged off clean. No traces, no screenshots, nothing they could call theft. Just notes, all by hand, all mine. Back in my car, I checked the badge report again. 2:13 a.m. Victor escorting contractors with crates. Audit log lined up. Change order at 2:29. 11 minutes. That's how long it took him to sign and seal a prepay that gutted the quarter. At home, I drew 3 boxes on the whiteboard. Badge logs. Calendar metadata. Bid fingerprints. 3 levers. All legal. All verifiable. And everyone pointed straight past me, up into Victor's corner office. I kept the marker, sat back, and let it settle. Paper cuts don't kill fast. But a stack of them? That bleeds out a career. Tomorrow, HR wanted me for the official exit interview. I'd sign their paper. Then I'd slide mine across the table. The HR conference room smelled like carpet glue and weak coffee. No windows, just beige walls and a framed core values poster: integrity, innovation, teamwork. I almost laughed. Across from me sat Paula Singh, mid-level HR, reading from a script like it was jury duty. She slid a stack of forms forward. Termination acknowledgement. Severance not applicable due to cause. I signed the property receipt, initials neat. When she offered the waiver of claims, I pushed it back. Not signing that. Her eyes flicked up. Standard process. Standard process doesn't override whistleblower statutes. She blinked twice, then said nothing. HR hated confrontation more than lawsuits. When it was done, I walked out lighter. Not happy, not free. Just lighter. Every box I checked in their system triggered another timer. And my complaint was already clocked in. At 11:42 a.m., from the parking lot, I submitted a report through the board's audit committee hotline. Badge logs. Calendar metadata. Vendor filings. No opinions, no theories, just data. At 12:03, I filed a complaint with the SEC: fraud, procurement violations, material misstatements. Attachments ready. By 2:30, I was in a different conference room. Oak table, tall windows, shelves of legal treatises. Attorney Ruth Park sat across from me, sharp suit, sharper pen. She slid a notary stamp across the table. We'll file an affidavit. Better than emails. Harder to bury. I signed. The stamp hit with a thud. Ruth tapped the lease rider she'd flagged. Look at this. The generator test 2 weeks ago caused a 4-hour outage. If Victor blamed the failure on that, liability flips. Landlord's insurer pays, not your company. I leaned closer. Buried in boilerplate, but there it was, Section 9. 2B, business interruption, generator test exception. Victor framed you for a 20 million hit, Ruth said. But if we tie the outage and the unauthorized change order together, that loss isn't yours. It's his. We spent 3 hours cataloging. Badge logs. Doc footage requests. Procurement bids. Calendar shifts. Lease riders. Every item notarized, indexed, and filed. When I left, the sun was low, traffic heavy, Civic's dashboard glowing amber. I didn't drive home. I headed for the office park 2 blocks over, the one with our property manager's office. A squat brick building with dusty blinds and a lobby that smelled like lemon cleaner. Because if Victor thought his mess stopped at corporate walls, he'd forgotten the one person who saw everything. The landlord. And their cameras didn't lie. Luis Ortega's office was nothing like Victor's glass palace. No marble, no curated silence. Just a second-floor corner that smelled of dust and lemon cleaner, a dented filing cabinet against the wall, and a mini fridge humming louder than the HVAC. He looked up when Ruth and I walked in. Let me guess, camera footage request? Ruth handed him the notarized preservation letter. Luis gave a low whistle. Formal. Haven't seen one of these in a while. We'll need loading doc logs and CCTV for the past month, Ruth said. Luis unlocked the cabinet, pulled a binder, and slid it across. Doc logs, signed by security. Copies only. CCTV all burned to a drive, building keeps 30 days. I flipped the binder open. Coffee stains on the pages, but entries were clear. Sunday, 2:13. Victor Hale, badge entry. 1 minute later, contractor badge 447 escorted. Vendor, Northstar Kinetics. Luis plugged in a thumb drive, clicked through feeds, and pulled up the dock camera. Grainy but usable. Timestamp, 2:14. Victor stepping out of his SUV, tie loose, jacket off. Behind him, Gareth Lynn, CIO, clipboard in hand. Two men in polos wheeled in pallets wrapped in black plastic. One carried a locked metal case. Stenciled, firmware, property of North Star. My chest tightened. Hardware swaps. Middle of the night. Off the books. Luis froze the frame. Want me to print stills? Yes, Ruth said. The printer groaned, each sheet another nail for Victor's coffin. Luis leaned back. Funny thing is, Hale told me they were emergency contractors, server cooling. But Monday morning, I checked the work order. Nothing filed. Doc logged as closed. I snapped a photo of the still with my phone. Chain of custody mattered, but personal reference mattered more. Ruth slid the copies into her case. This is enough to escalate. I closed the binder. Not yet. We need the procurement trail to tie it together. Luis gave me a long look. You planning to go back in? I still have badge access until midnight, I said. Ruth raised an eyebrow. One more pull? One more, I said. I thanked Luis, pocketed the timeline printout, and stepped into the parking lot. The air smelled of asphalt and rain. The clock was ticking. Victor thought the boardroom was the stage. He hadn't factored in the dock camera, or the binder full of signatures, or the landlord's insurance rider. By midnight, all of it would be mapped. And the first domino was already falling. The print server nook sat in the far corner of the second floor, humming like a beehive. Most people avoided it, too loud, too cramped, too full of toner dust. For me, it was gold. I swiped my badge. Green light. Inside, cabinets rattled as machines churned payroll stubs and compliance packets. I pulled the lowest drawer of the filing rack, procurement's dumping ground after sign-off. There it was, the bid tab for the infrastructure upgrade. I'd built the template myself, 3 quotes side by side, costs compared, approval cells waiting for initials. At the time, routine. Now, a weapon. I scanned the sheets. North Star Kinetics, $14. 8M, Crest Wave, $15. 1M, Apex, $14. 9M, Tight Spread, competitive on paper. But in the margin, I'd scribbled vendor registration numbers, habit from an old audit. Tonight, I cross-checked. North Star and Apex? Same Delaware mail drop. Same suite. Same registered agent. Crest Wave? Dissolved months before its quote. 3 bids. 1 fingerprint. Policy was clear. Fewer than 3 valid independent bids voided contract protections. That meant penalties for losses didn't stick to the company, they stuck to whoever pushed the fake bids. I took a fresh printout, dated and timestamped. My fingers smelled like toner. Then I moved to the DocuSign logs. VPN was blocked now, but the metadata cache lingered in the print queue. I scrolled to the $9. 8M prepayment envelope. The IP didn't trace back to corporate. It traced back to Victor's home account. I scribbled it in my notebook, envelope hash plus IP match. That was the nail. Victor hadn't just approved it, he'd done it from home, bypassing IT security. The printer groaned, spitting out a summary sheet. My hand hovered over it. In court, it wouldn't matter that I was just an analyst. It would matter that every piece was verifiable, logs, timestamps, bids, IPs. A clean trail from fraud to the executive suite. Behind me, the machines rattled louder. I glanced at the time. 11:07 p.m. Badge access expired at midnight. I slid the copies into my tote, shut the drawer, and stepped into the hall. Victor thought the $20 million was buried. He didn't know it was about to be exhumed, by his own signature. The law firm's conference room was all glass walls and cold water bottles, the kind of place where silence weighed more than words. A long oak table ran the length of the room, leather chairs feeling more like restraints than seats. Audit Committee Counsel Nathan Cho leaned forward, hands clasped. Walk us through it, Aaron. Start with the logs. I slid the binder across. 2:13 a.m. Victor Hale badge entry at the loading dock. 1 minute later, contractor badge 447, North Star Kinetics. CCTV confirms. 2 pallets. 1 metal case labeled firmware. Nathan nodded, jotting. Next. I opened the folder to the DocuSign printout. 11 minutes later, change order envelope initiated. Sender, Hale v. IP trace, Victor's home account. $9. 8 million prepayment authorized. No board approval. Across the table, Gareth Lynn shifted. Anyone could have spoofed that. Aaron's speculating. I didn't look at him. Instead, I clicked the remote. The projector lit the wall with 3 vendor bids side by side. North Star and Apex registered to the same agent. Crest wave dissolved before its quote. Policy requires 3 independent bids. Without them, the contract is void. Liability transfers to the signing officer. The room went still. Dana Merritt wasn't here, suspended pending review. But Gareth was, and his jaw tightened when Nathan asked, "Do you dispute these filings?" Gareth cleared his throat. "Procurement manages registrations, not IT." I tapped my phone and his own voice filled the room. "Push the loss into Q2. Nobody reads the writers." Nathan leaned back. "That's your voice." Gareth froze. Silence answered for him. Nathan closed his folder. "Board will move on this immediately. Aaron, you'll stay available." "Gareth, consider this your notice." The door opened. 2 assistants entered with draft papers already clipped. Emergency motion to freeze payments to Northstar. Effective immediately. Gareth half rose, then sat back when Nathan didn't look at him. I capped my pen, slid my notebook into my tote, and stood. Victor thought firing me ended the story. Gareth thought discrediting me would stall it. But the numbers, the cameras, the contracts, everyone spoke louder than they ever could. And now, the board was listening. By the time I got home, Ruth had filed the motion. At 7:42 a.m., the courthouse portal pinged back, temporary restraining order granted. Northstar's payments frozen, pending investigation. At 8:15, my phone buzzed again, Ruth's paralegal forwarding the landlord's insurer acknowledgement. Section 9. 2b. The writer we'd flagged was live. Liability transferred during generator tests. Black and white. Victor tried his usual spin in the emergency board session. We acted under emergency conditions. Equipment was failing. Substitution was necessary to preserve operations. His voice carried that practiced mix of authority and exasperation. I stayed quiet until Nathan tapped my shoulder. "Aaron, tell them about the pallets." I pushed the doc log forward. Sunday, 2:13. Hail badge entry. Contractors escorted. Pallets wrapped in black plastic. One case labeled firmware. No board authorization. No procurement approval. Violation of Clause 14b. Elaine Rowe, independent director, frowned. Clause 14b. I opened the contract. Any substitution not approved by the board transfers liability to the signing officer. I tapped the signature line. Victor Hale. Silence. Victor leaned forward. "This is speculative. No proof the pallets contained unapproved equipment." Ruth slid the still photos across the table. Black plastic. Timestamped. The stenciled case clear as daylight. Speculative? Elaine's voice was sharper than Victor's ever had been. Nathan followed with the DocuSign logs, IP traced to Victor's home. $9, $8 million prepaid. 11 minutes after Hale entered the building. That's not emergency mitigation. That's prearranged substitution. The room shifted. Directors looked at each other, not at him. Elaine snapped the folder shut. "Until this is resolved, Victor, you are suspended. Effective immediately." Dana Merritt's name came next. Not in the room, already on leave. Procurement lead had cracked. The bids were coordinated, not independent. Victor tried to rise, but real security stepped forward. He paused, jaw set, then sank back into his chair. The TRO was inked. The writer active. Liability wasn't theory anymore, it was anchored. And for the first time since my firing, Victor looked like he'd seen the real numbers. The first wire confirmation hit at 6:12 a.m. Northstar's $9. $8 million hadn't stayed whole, it fractured. $5. 2M with Northstar's main account. $3. 6M funneled to Radian Field Limited came in shell. $1 million to a Nevada consulting firm, trustee address matching Victor's family trust. Ruth's eyes narrowed at the routing slips. Classic layering. AML flags will be automatic. She was right. By 9:27 a.m., the bank filed a suspicious activity report. Funds frozen pending review. Then the timeline clicked. Contract language carried a clawback clause. If fraud in the inducement is discovered within 10 business days of payment, payee shall return funds in full. We were on day 4. 6 left. I drafted a memo, doc logs, DocuSign IPs, sham bids, wire splits. Ruth added her affidavit. Nathan packaged it for the audit committee. At noon, Elaine convened a closed board call. Voices clipped tense. A director asked, "If we push this and funds vanish offshore, are we exposed?" Nathan was flat. "Exposure is less than liability if we don't. Fraud carve-out is enforceable." Elaine didn't hesitate. We pursue the clawback. Victor wasn't on the call, suspended, silenced. Dana was. Her voice cracked once, then steadied. North Star pressured me. Said the prepay was non-negotiable. I initialed under duress. I'll testify. That shifted the weight. The board moved unanimous. Ruth leaned back. Next step's federal. Wire recall order through AML. File it today, $5. 2M comes back. Maybe more. The clock ticked. Victor had scattered the money like confetti. Thought shells would bury it. But shells crack when the right hammer drops. And the hammer was already in motion. The IT forensic team called me at 7:45 a.m. The server room was locked down, 2 guards outside, every badge scan logged. On the table sat the firmware case unsealed. Inside, shrink-wrapped modules, North Star branding. Lead forensic Maya Torres pointed at the logs. Not cooling equipment. Management controllers. Loaded with custom firmware. What kind of custom? I asked. She pulled up a console. Remote hooks. They don't steal data, they alter invoice and transaction records. Quietly. Retroactively. So that was the play. Not espionage. Accounting manipulation. Victor hadn't just hidden losses, he'd built a tool to rewrite them. Any sign of deployment? Nathan asked. Maya shook her head. 1 unit powered on. No production systems touched. Whoever carried these in never finished the install. Because they'd been interrupted. By the cameras. By the doc logs. By me. Still, Gareth had tried to bury it. Logs showed a system wipe command launched Monday at 3:11 a.m. From an admin token link. Maya pulled up the recovery log. Wipe failed. Print server queued a mirror copy when job spooled. Never cleared. Backup saved the modified firmware image. I exhaled. The print server again. My overlooked corner. Nathan smiled for the first time since I'd met him. So Gareth ordered the wipe and your system caught it. That's evidence of intent to conceal. We documented chain of custody, sealed the image, logged signatures. By noon, Ruth had drafted a notice, unauthorized installation attempt of non-compliant hardware with capacity to falsify financial records. Elaine didn't wait. She called another emergency board meeting. I sat back as the weight shifted. Victor already suspended. Dana flipped. Gareth cornered by his own token. The back door wasn't active, but the attempt was enough. Victor thought he could bury 20 million with doctored firmware. Instead, the firmware buried him. The board met at 8 a.m. sharp. No coffee, no small talk, just binders stacked in front of each director. Nathan led with the wires. $5, 2M at North Star, $3, 6M through Radian Field, $1 million into a Nevada shell tied to Hale's trust. Elaine followed. AML reports filed. Funds frozen. Next came the firmware. Maya projected console output, hooks to alter invoices, remote triggers, failed wipe from Gareth's token. A director muttered, that's fraud infrastructure, not IT maintenance. Luis Ortega's doc stills hit the table. Pallets. Black wrap. Firmware case. Victor and Gareth on camera. Finally, Ruth stacked her affidavits. Lease rider. Clause 14, B. Liability transfer in black and white. The room was silent. Victor sat pale at the end, suspended but present. Gareth fidgeted with a pen. Elaine leaned forward. This board will not collapse under fraud. Effective immediately, Victor Hale is suspended for cause pending termination. Gareth Lynn removed from access and placed on leave. Dana Merritt remains suspended. Victor tried one last push. This isn't fraud, it's mismanagement. You'll sink shareholder value. Elaine cut him off. What sink value is wiring millions offshore and signing unapproved substitutions? What protects value is clawing it back. Nathan added, recall orders initiated. Radian Field funds under AML review. Insurer tender filed. The vote was unanimous. Victor stripped. Gareth escorted out. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Logs, bids, signatures, firmware, they spoke for me. The board didn't look at Victor as security walked him out. They looked at me. Elaine closed her binder. We'll need you to design controls so this never happens again. As a consultant. With equity. Victor had tried to erase me with a $20 million accusation. Now, $20 million was the reason I was still at the table while he walked out. I entered the arbitration room expecting routine, Victor contesting suspension, me presenting documents, case closed. Instead, something else waited. On the table sat a thick binder, Confidential employment file, Aaron Holt. Victor's attorney opened it. MS. Holt, you failed to disclose outside consulting work with Crestwave Systems while employed. Conflict of interest. My stomach dropped. Crestwave, the dissolved shell that filed a fake bid. I'd never worked for them. I kept my voice level. That's fabricated. The attorney slid an invoice across the table. My name. My old address. A $7,500 Crestwave payment for process consulting. Nathan scanned it fast. This wasn't in discovery. Victor smirked. New evidence. Confirms she's not a whistleblower. She's complicit. The invoice format was wrong, 3 digits off from every real Crestwave invoice I'd seen. But in the room, optics mattered more than details. The arbitrator frowned. Ms. Holt, can you explain this payment? I shook my head. I never received it. Check bank records. Victor's attorney was ready. Already subpoenaed. Deposit made to an account under Holt. Routing number matches Regional Credit Union. Ruth whispered, quick and low. They're planting you. Shadow account in your name. For the first time since my firing, the ground shifted. This wasn't just corporate fraud, it was personal. They'd fabricated evidence to drag me under. Nathan demanded immediate verification. The arbitrator gave 1 hour. Ruth pulled me into the hall. If that account exists, it's identity fraud. We need the open date, device, and who authorized it. I nodded, pulse racing. The case had flipped. Instead of dismantling Victor, I had to fight for myself. He wasn't just saving his career. He was trying to take me with him. The credit union compliance office smelled of paper and ozone. Nameplate, R. Keen, BSA/AML. He already had the file. Account ending 1173. Open last Tuesday, 8:41 p.m. Online application. CIP satisfied with driver's license upload. Name, Aaron Holt. Ruth slid her card across. Device IP, KBA records. Keen read from the screen. Device fingerprint A971444. IP block, downtown residential fiber. MFA SMS to prepaid number ending 4027. Initial deposit, $7,500 ACH from Crestwave Systems. License image? I asked. He turned the monitor. My license, front and back. Only the back showed a faint light bar glare, exactly like HR's copy. Keen kept reading. KIC notary on file for signature verification, Paula Singh. He looked up. That name familiar? Ruth didn't blink. Print the log. Full chain. He did. At the bottom, device A971444 previously registered a business account for Radian Field Limited. 5 weeks ago. Same IP block. Same prepaid number. We left with the packet. I called Luis on the way out. You log guest Wi-Fi max? Every day, he said. Why? I need the DHCP table from last Tuesday, 7 to 9 p.m. 10 minutes later, a CSV hit Ruth's inbox. There it was, Mac A971444. Connected to building guest Wi-Fi at 7:58 p.m. Credential issued by HR desk, P. Singh. Ruth stopped walking. Paula handed the login. Same device opened your shadow account. Same device set up Radian Field. We went straight to HR. Paula looked up from her script pile and went white when Ruth set the logs down. I just issued a guest code, she stammered. Gareth asked. Said Bender. Ruth pointed at the notary stamp in Keen's file. Your seal verified Aaron's signature. Paula's eyes dropped. Gareth sent me the template. Victor told me to clean up the optics. Said it would be fine. Her voice cracked. I didn't think it would hit you. Phone, Ruth said. Paula handed it over. In her texts, Gareth forwarding a Crestwave invoice, fields highlighted. Victor replying, use the HR file for ID. Finish tonight. Timestamped the night the account opened. Ruth bagged the phone. You're coming with us to arbitration. Now. Paula nodded, shaking. Will they charge me? Depends how fast you cooperate, Ruth said. The ambush had been sharp. The counterpunch was cleaner. And the device trail that framed me now pointed straight at the people who built it. I didn't feel relief. I felt the timeline tightening. Arbitration was still live. We had 1 hour to flip the board's perception, or I'd wear a fraud I didn't commit. Back in the room, Victor's attorney looked smug, convinced the trap had sprung. He didn't see Paula until she sat beside Nathan. Ruth led. New exhibit. Credit union CIP logs, device fingerprint matches guest Wi-Fi A971444. Guest credential issued by HR, Ms. Singh. The same evening a shadow account was opened in Ms. Holt's name. Same device previously registered Radian Field Limited. We also have messages from Mr. Lin and Mr. Hale instructing Ms. Singh to fabricate an invoice and use HRID scans. The arbitrator didn't bother to hide his reaction. Counsel. Victor's attorney stood slowly. Objection. Late evidence. Overruled, the arbitrator said. We're determining credibility. Paula spoke without prompting. I verified the fake invoice and scanned Aaron's license from the HR file. Gareth sent the template. Victor told me to do it after hours. I knew it was wrong. Nathan added another stack. Wi-Fi logs from the landlord. Device A971C44 on network 1958 to 2104. Credit union records show account creation at 2041, same device fingerprint. Prepaid number ending 4027 linked to Radian Field. Victor finally moved. This is absurd. HR issues hundreds of guest codes. The arbitrator cut him off. Notary stamps and device matches aren't random. The panel will treat the Crestwave invoice as tainted and exclude it. Interim finding, Ms. Holt's whistleblower status stands. Victor's attorney tried to pivot. Then we request a protective order limiting her testimony. Denied, the arbitrator said, writing as he spoke. And due to attempted evidence fabrication, I'm issuing sanctions. Counsel may seek costs. Ruth leaned toward me, voice low. Your name's clear here. Criminal exposure shifts. Nathan pressed. We also request preservation orders for Mr. Lin's and Mr. Hale's devices and accounts. Granted, the arbitrator said. Immediate imaging. Victor's jaw flexed. Gareth, 3 chairs back, stared at the table. We walked into the hallway. Ruth exhaled once. Not over. Now we move to law enforcement. Identity theft is its own track. Elaine called before we reached the elevator. I saw the interim ruling. Good. Be ready for the full board this afternoon. We're moving fast. The ambush was neutralized. But fast movement cuts both ways. When you press, things break. I needed them to break in the right places. We took over a small conference room on the 2nd floor, whiteboard, 2 laptops, evidence bags lined in a row. No windows. Nathan called it a war room. That fit. First call, the correspondent bank. Nathan put it on speaker. Fraud nexus established between Crestwave's fake invoice and Radian Field's onboarding device. Execute recall on the $5, 2M to Northstar and freeze the $3, 6M at Radian Field. Recall executed, the banker said. Northstar locked. Radian Field flagged. Outbound transfers halted pending AML review. Maya arrived with an anti-static case and a signed imaging log. Lynn's laptop, she said. Tuesday 1936, exported the Crestwave invoice template. Hash matches the arbitration exhibit. Slack thread attached. Use HR scans. Finish tonight. Sender, Victor H. Ruth photographed the screen, noted the hash, sealed the case again, and signed the chain of custody form. No gaps. Luis texted, shred, jam caught strips. 5 minutes later, he rolled in a bin and a Ziploc of half-cut paper. I pulled strips by date, matched letterheads, taped edges. One fragment showed my last name beside a notary seal, another read wiring instructions, Nevada Consulting LLC with a partial account number and an unfamiliar routing code. Nathan scanned the reassembled sheet and ran the name. Nevada Consulting LLC opened 60 days ago. Manager is a trust company that also services an entity tied to Hale's family office. He printed the hit and added it to the stack. Paula sat across from us, pale but steady. Ruth slid a deposition form over. Say it plainly. Paula did. She read the texts from Gareth and Victor authorizing a fake invoice and the use of my HRID scans. She initialed each page and signed. Ruth notarized on the spot. Procurement lead Andre Vega joined by video rect. Hale told me to request bids from Northstar, Crestwave, and Apex. Then he sent me PDFs to upload. I pushed back, he said move it. He forwarded the email chain. It showed exactly that. At 2:40 p.m. Security walked Gareth past our door toward IT with the imaging order. He didn't look in. He didn't have to. We already had his laptop, his Slack thread, and shred leftovers. Nathan's checklist clicked shut, bank confirmations, freezes, device match, Slack proof, Paula's deposition, Andre's emails, shred fragments tying Nevada Consulting to the pipeline. He capped his pen. Bored. Now. The boardroom felt colder than usual. Elaine at the head, counsel flanking. We presented in sequence. Bank recall, $5. 2M back. Freeze notice, $3. 6M locked. Device and messages. Victor directing fabrication. Procurement emails, PDFs seeded by Victor. Paula's sworn statement, HR file abused for identity theft. Shred reconstruction, Nevada consulting as the wiring path. Elaine turned to Victor. Response? He stared at the still of himself at the dock. This is a witch hunt. You're calling operations fraud. Nathan didn't raise his voice. Operations don't require offshore affiliates, fake bids, forged invoices, or stolen IDs. A director asked, our exposure if we terminate for cause now? Ruth answered, lower than if we hesitate. Logs preserved, funds secured, insurer tender filed. The fraud carve-outs are enforceable. Delay only helps the other side move money. Elaine closed her binder. Call the question. Hands went up. Termination for cause, Victor Hale. Immediate. Termination for cause, Gareth Lynn. Immediate. Dana's file set aside, cooperation terms pending. Security stepped in. Gareth didn't argue. Victor tried one last line, you're tanking the quarter, and stopped when no one looked up. They walked them out through the same glass hall where I'd been escorted days earlier. Elaine faced me. We'll issue a statement within the hour. Your settlement is ready. I want you to design the compliance rebuild, vendor screening, badge log reconciliation, signature governance, print server retention. I'm authorizing equity. Understood, I said. No speeches. We weren't done. Back in the war room, the press draft hit my inbox. Leadership transition, ongoing investigation, material recovery in process. Clean. Careful. True. Maya handed me a drive. Firmware image and wipe logs. Offline, 2 copies. Ruth filed the identity theft complaint with the county investigator and queued federal referrals for the forged invoice. Paula stayed to give her formal statement. Andre prepped a declaration. Every piece tightened the box. Then my phone buzzed, an alert from Treasury Ops, foreign correspondent inquiry on Radian Field, urgent hold request stamped 5 minutes ago. I looked at Nathan. He read the banner, grabbed his jacket, and spoke into the phone as he moved. Get me the correspondent's name and the international wire reference. If they're testing the fence, we raise it now. The chain at home was finally locked. Somebody was already testing a link offshore. At 7:32 a.m., Ruth's phone buzzed with a Treasury Ops alert. Radian Field's $3. 6M had been flagged in Zurich, intermediary, Belvoir capital. A hold request had already landed from the Swiss correspondent. Nathan was on his feet before she finished reading. We need a mirror injunction. If they move it once, they'll try again. Ruth called DOJ's Financial Crimes Unit. We have AML freeze, device logs, fabricated invoices, and identity theft tied to Hale and Lynn. We're requesting coordination to block any foreign release. By 8:05, DOJ escalated. Belvoir was already under review for laundering. Grounds established. A provisional global hold order went out. Then Zurich fired back. Beneficial owner listed as Nevada Consulting LLC. Documents supplied for release. Maya pulled the shred fragments from our files. Same routing codes. Same LLC. They're trying to argue legitimacy with doctored papers. Nathan asked the question. Who signed the release request? Belvoir's fax showed it, Elaine Rowe. We froze. Elaine, the director leading the purge. Ruth checked the strokes against board records. Identical. 2 identical. Overlay analysis showed pixel-perfect match. Cut and paste. They cloned her signature. It wasn't just offshore laundering. It was forgery, aimed at the one name that could fracture the board if it stuck. If Zurich believed it, the $3. 6M would vanish before noon. And if word leaked Elaine's name was on it, the cleanup collapsed. Nathan moved fast. Get Elaine in here. Now. And push the overlay proof to Swiss counsel before release. Elaine arrived 10 minutes later, jaw set. She signed a counteraffidavit live, on video, swearing she hadn't touched any release. DOJ packaged it with the overlay and blasted it back to Zurich. At 10:22, Zurich confirmed, hold extended. Release request rejected. Victor's network had made its boldest move, weaponizing Elaine's authority against her. This time, it failed. But the attempt meant one thing: Victor still had allies outside. And they were willing to forge board signatures to get his money out. The settlement meeting didn't feel like victory. No champagne, no applause, just a stamped packet slid across a walnut table. 7 figures, fees covered, neutral reference. My name cleared. My piece of the mess officially closed. Elaine shook my hand. Compliance rebuild starts Monday. Equity stake finalized next quarter. We'll do it right this time. Outside, the air felt sharper. The company intact. $5. 2M clawback. $3. 6M frozen under AML. Victor and Gareth gone. Paula and Dana cooperating. Every lever pulled exactly by policy, not force. At home, I leaned the old whiteboard against the wall. Red circles and arrows still scrawled across it, badge logs, bids, wire trails. What began as scraps of paper and toner dust had become a chain strong enough to pull down the top floor. And the conclusion hit harder than the settlement check. Being underestimated had been my strongest weapon. They assumed I'd fold. They never saw the records I kept, the blind spots I mapped, the policies I memorized. Quiet competence wasn't weakness, it was camouflage. That's the thought I leave you with. In a system built on arrogance, the overlooked details are where power hides. Now I'll ask you, if someone threw 20 million in losses in your face, what quiet lever would you pull first? Because every story lives as long as it is remembered. A like is your mark on the story, and a subscription is your ticket to the next one.